Hey y'all, it's Rick here again with Sick Diecast. I come back to you to make another video. I know it's been a long time since I made one, so I've been getting a lot of questions regarding some of my old how-to lift kit videos. I figured I'd make an updated new one and show you how I do it now, because I've come a long way since I first made those videos back then, as far as knowledge of how to do these things after a lot of trial and error. The first videos I made, those ways were really complicated and difficult to get it right, but the way I do it now is extremely easy, and it's not difficult or complicated at all. But you do need a few things. First off, you're going to need some aluminum tubing like this, and I use a couple of different sizes depending on whether you use the axles, like greenlight axles like this, where the wheels just snap on either end, or if you use Hot Wheels axles. I found that for like the greenlight style axles, this 3/32 aluminum tubing works fine. You get it in packs like this from Hobby Lobby. And for the Hot Wheels style ones, I get this 1/16 aluminum tubing, as you see right there, and this is you can get it in brass or aluminum, but I get it at Hobby Lobby. And also I found that this 3/64, I don't know if you could see it right there, but it says 3/64 tubing works as well. And this 3/64 tubing also works as axle material for the greenlight wheels, because these axles came out of it and they were too short to go across the width of the vehicle. So I made new axles by cutting a length of that 3/64 brass tubing and putting it in these greenlight wheels to serve as its axles, and it works really well. Well, first off, what you're going to do, since this is a Motor Max truck, it uses the greenlight. I'm using greenlight wheels on it. It didn't have greenlight style wheels on it to start with. It had a Johnny Lightning style wheel. But the way you're going to do this is you're going to take this this larger tubing, this 3/32, I believe I said, and you're going to lay it across where your axle is going to go. You're going to take your Sharpie, and just on the other end of it, I don't know if y'all can see it here, but just where that ends, you make you a mark. If I could get my Sharpie to work. Come on now. Get your Sharpie to work. And you hold it where it's just across there. You don't really want any overhang. I mean, unless you really want a wide set of wheels. That's preference, really. I don't like that, but some people do. And as you can see, I got my mark there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take an X-Acto knife, and it doesn't have to be a sharp one. I actually prefer one that's a little dull. That way I don't mess up the edge of a good blade. And you put it directly on your line and put a little pressure down, and you just roll that tubing, and this acts as if it's a pipe cutter in plumbing, but that sharp edge just rolling in that one spot, it'll create an area, and it'll cut it in two. Every time you roll it, it goes a little deeper until it finally breaks off like that. And then what you want to do is you want to take your glue, and where the old wheels ran, you see I already got the back on this one. Where the old wheels ran, there's a little hole there, and you want to run your bead of glue straight from one hole to the other, because that's center of your wheel well. So that's where your new axles need to go, because all you really want to do is just drop it down to pick the truck up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and run me a bead of glue from one of those little notches where the wheel used to be to the other side. And then I'm going to take my little piece of tubing here and get it as straight as possible, and I'm going to turn it where I can see it here. Get it as straight as possible and drop it in your line of glue, and before it sets, pick it up and check it out to make sure it's straight all the way across on both sides. Turn around, do whatever you need to do before that glue sets, because that super glue is set pretty quick. That's why I like using the gel one. You got a little bit of forgiveness time there, and you make sure it's centered. And as you can see, there's not really any overhang on either end here. It pretty much cuts off flush right there with your base there. And then all you do is you take your axle, slide it through your tube, and you pop your tire on the other side. And I made that sound simple, and it's not working because I got a burr on it. There it goes. And then you got a lifted truck. Now, if you're like me and you don't trust super glue to hold up all the time, what I do is, I'm not going to do it on camera, is I take some of this 2-part clear 5-minute epoxy, squirt it out and mix it up, and I'll run me a bead of that from one side of my axle to the other across it and make it look nice and smooth and pretty. And that's a lot stronger than just the super glue. It helps reinforce it, give you a little stronger hold. Now if you're doing one like on a Hot Wheels type wheels, I got one of these set up here too. I've already done. It's a little bit different process, but once again, you take the 1/16 inch tubing, pretty much the same process. You lay out, mark across there what you want as far as width. And this one, it helps to cut it a little short instead of off just flush, because there's an extra step in this process, and you need these glass beads from the jewelry section at Walmart to do this. And these things are great for this. I've been using these almost the whole time I've been customizing, and you see I've only used this much out of this whole container. So, but these are going to act as wheel spacers. So you cut your tube in the length I already have. You cut your wheels and the axle, you cut it in two, as you can see I have right there. It's not a complete whole piece anymore. I cut it in two. And you take these little glass beads, and I don't know if you could see it right there. I'll slide it out. That little glass bead, you put it on your axle there, and then that's going to act as your wheel spacer. So whenever we glue these to the truck, it doesn't stick your wheel in place and glue your wheel in place. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. But I've already got one half of this done. And as you can see, that wheel spins freely on that axle, and it's because of that little glass bead right there, because that's where the glue absorbs. But I've already got this cut, and I'm gonna add this. And another thing I want to point out too is, whenever you cut these tubings, I don't know if you guys can see that, if I can get it to focus there, it's not clean. You got a little burr around that edge right there. So what you want to do before you ever put any glue on anything is take one of these axles. It's got a little sharp point on it from where you cut it, and you want to stick down in there to kind of clear that burr out. So once you put that glue on there, you have a smooth tube to go into. You don't have to try to poke this out the way. And I use the axle a lot of times. Sometimes they get to be stubborn, kind of like this one is being. And what I'll do is I'll take my X-Acto knife, and I'll take the tip, and I'll just kind of like ream that hole out, just spin it around to clear that burr out the way. And as you can see now, this should just slide right down in there easy. If I could get it lined up right. And see, it slides down in there. So you want to get that cleared out before you try to put glue on it and then have to fight with it. And on Hot Wheels, I do it a little different. I don't put just the axle tube on there to start with, since this is going to be one homogeneous piece. It's not going to be a tube that the wheel and axle just slide into like with the Greenlight wheel. So what I'll do is I'll glue everything in place, and then I'll pop the whole axle on there at one time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue, and I'll put just a little tiny dab right there on the tip of that axle tube, where that hole is, where that tube's going to slide into. And I got me a dental pick here, and what I do is, and you always want to make sure your little bead's on there now. See your little bead on there? Make sure your little bead's on your axle. and you slide it down in that tube, and before it sets, you take this pick and push the head of that axle down inside that hole there so you don't have a whole lot of slop. And I always like to just hold it and try to spin it a little bit. Make sure it don't get too tight. That way when it sets, your wheel will still spin, because if you push it down in there and it pinches tight and you don't spin it to make a little bit of freedom for that wheel to turn, it'll lock it in place as well. But where we put the glue on the end of that tubing there, if that bead wouldn't have been there and we'd have pushed that in, it would have glued the wheel to the end of that aluminum tubing. But that bead there makes a barrier in between, so the bead glues to the tubing and it doesn't actually get on the wheel, and the wheel can still turn freely. And then all I do is, now it's pretty much the same process as the one before. Run you a bead of glue across the bottom here, lined up with your old wheel holes, or however offset you want it. Sometimes offset works good, like if you're building a Jeep into a rock crawler and you want to kick the wheels out in front of the front bumper to give it a little longer stance. That I've actually done that before on a Jeep and a Toyota FJ. That works fine too. It, like I said, it's all a preference thing. And then you pick it up and you check your placement while you got time to move it still. And that one's a little far back. And voila, you got a lifted Hot Wheels. I don't know if this helps any, but I feel like the light's messing with the camera. But as you can see, now you got two lifted 1/64 scale die cast. And that's a method for doing both types of lift kits. Some of them, like if you're doing a smaller truck and you need to put a spacer in between the base and where the axle is going to go, because the base makes the tire sit too far up in the fender wheels and locks up. All I do is take a piece of square stock styrene or a piece of popsicle stick and split it down to make me a little spacer to put in between the axle tube and the base, and that gives it that little bit of extra lift. But that's simple. There's plenty of ways to figure that out, but this is the way I do lift kits now. Simpler, a lot easier, a lot less stuff to mess with, goes a lot quicker. And I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope everybody's getting ready to have a Merry Christmas. I haven't made videos in a while, just been busy with life, got a lot going on, and but I felt the need to come out and make this video instead of, because I keep having a lot of people ask me, what size tension pins did you use, and what kind of electrical eyelets did you use, and all different kind of stuff. And I don't even use that method anymore. I don't even remember what those specs of those materials were. I actually have to go back and reference the videos if I answer anybody. So I figured I'd make this method. I had all the material right here. Goes a lot quicker, a lot less headache for everybody, and I think it'd make your customs look a lot better. If you really wanted to, on these Hot Wheel styles where the straight axle is and you don't want to cut it, you could just glue the Hot Wheels axle itself straight to the base. I don't do that because I think it looks tackier, but to each their own. I like this method. It looks a little bit more professional and clean. And one thing I forgot to mention is, you can see there's scuffs here on the bottom of this thing. What you want to do before you glue these axles down, I forgot to tell y'all this, is you sand it down flat, because you don't want because some of these things have differential housings and it's got a hump on it, and if you put it on there, it's going to rock back and forth. So your truck, once the glue sets, it's going to be leaning to one side or the other. So you want to sand this in here flat, so that that axle sits flat in there and it doesn't have no lean or cant to it. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative and helped everybody out some. I'm still building customs, still collecting a little bit, not a whole bunch. I've sold off probably 60%, well, not 60%, I've sold off 40% of my collection. I still have about 60% of it left, but just life's been going on. Got a lot of stuff going on. Got a surgery coming up here in a few weeks, and just a whole lot going on. New job, life in general. I'm sure all of y'all can understand that. So that answers the question of when I'm gonna make videos again, when I'm gonna come back. I may not ever come back, or I may come back sporadically like this when I have something that's pertinent information to share that I think could help y'all out with customs. But as far as haul videos and stuff like that I was doing before, I'm not going to be doing any of that because I'm not having hauls or mailbox finds or trade boxes or stuff like that. But like I said, I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. I'm going to quit rambling now and get off here and let y'all get back to spending time with your family. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope it was informational, and have a good day.